Hey guys, recently I've been moving some of my sites off of WordPress onto a faster setup with Astro. I still like WordPress a lot, and I think for a lot of businesses, it's the right tool. But for some of my websites, I've been liking Astro a lot more than I expected. If the site already has traffic, analytics, backlinks, pop-ups, ranking in Google, and it already has site history, then you want to be really careful about making the change. You can't just rebuild it in the new platform and expect everything to be automatically all right. The question for me became, how do I move what I have without breaking what already works? The idea behind that is what I've called the prime migration. Prime stands for prepare, replicate, inspect, migrate, and evolve. The basic idea behind this is first preserve what works and then improve on it. So that's why I wanted to make this video, to share what I'm doing and what the results have been. If you're new to this channel, my name is Joe Armstrong, and I build online businesses that can run without me. I've been in the SEO and course space for over 10 years, and now I'm using AI to improve existing businesses and to build new ones. And I'm sharing what I'm learning here on this channel. In another video, I talked about the concept of an agentic website, which basically means using AI to manage a website after it goes live. This video is a follow-up to that video. So if you already have a working website, but you want to move it to a more cleaner, faster, and AI-friendlier version, then this is what I'll be covering in the video. The mistake I try to avoid is treating this like a complete rebuild from scratch. For a new site, that could be fine. But for a site with existing traffic, you want to be careful when you make that migration. So how did this all start? I have a website in the automotive niche, and it made me think more about this whole problem more seriously. And it was on WordPress, and it was working fine, but I really wanted to grow it. And one of the parts of the website that I was having trouble with was being able to add events. I wanted to be able to talk about the events and the places. And setting that up in WordPress became really difficult. At some point, I kind of just gave up. I didn't want to add that part to the site anymore, and I mostly put it on hold. Then I heard about other people creating AI websites, and I thought I would look into that myself. And what I found out was quite surprising. I found out that I could basically replicate this site, and then I can use AI to solve a lot of the problems that I wanted to handle with those events. I could do that by having the AI help me with the events and having the AI map everything out and make it a lot clearer in a simpler way to update the events. So building the site wasn't that difficult. The tough part was, how do I make sure that I don't lose anything that I already have? How do I basically preserve all of the good things and then just build on that after the migration? And so as I started to plan out the migration, I decided to make a process for it. And that's where the prime method came from. So since then, I've done a few migrations off of WordPress onto Astro, and I followed the prime method for that. So again, that's prepare, replicate, inspect, migrate, and evolve. And each time I've done those migrations, I've improved the process, and that's what I'm sharing here in this video. And you want to make sure that you follow this order, because if you don't, you may end up losing some traffic and you might not know why. So let's talk about the steps. The first one is prepare. So before I start the new site, I want to make sure that I understand the current site. I do this by making sure I understand the site, the URL structure, the traffic, what's on the site, plugins, things like that. And the AI can help out with a lot of that. But the AI is not going to be perfect, so you also need to do some work on your own to make sure that you understand what's important on the site. So I like to make a list to make sure that I have everything covered, things like forms and pop-ups, URL structure, traffic, having Google Search Console, Google Analytics, any of the tools that you have connected or you should have connected, make sure that they are there on the site. And that way you have a baseline you can compare when you do the migration and after the migration. After you are finished with the prepare step, then you want to move on to replicate. So with replicate, you're going to make a duplicate of your site. Now you want to make it as close to exactly the same as possible. And it's really tempting here to actually improve things. Oftentimes when I have the AI look over the site, it will give me suggestions for how to do things better, or maybe make a better homepage. It's very tempting to fix the existing problems. I don't recommend that. I recommend doing it exactly the same as the existing site. The reason is you want to make it as close of a copy as possible that when you do the migration, that way you don't lose much. And if anything, it stays exactly the same. In many cases, there will actually be an improvement because things like site speed, meta tags, or SEO descriptions will be added in. Make sure to keep the URL structure exactly the same and think of all the potential things that are on the back end of the site that you may have missed and make sure that they do exist on the rebuild. Okay, the third step now is to inspect. So now you want to compare the existing site with the new site. And you want to make sure it's as close of a mirror image as possible. So that means checking the images, checking the text, checking the page structure, the layout of the pages. It's not going to be perfect, but you want to get it really, really close as possible. And again, like I said before, make sure that you don't try to improve on it. You want to improve on that later after the site has settled and you've made the migration and you know everything works properly. Now, the AI will be able to check a lot of this stuff on its own, and it will do a pretty good job. And if you build the skills properly and you do enough passes on it, it will catch most of the things that it missed. However, I like to actually manually go through and check these as well, especially for really important sites and really important pages. Now, you may have a site with tens or hundreds or even thousands of pages. And in that case, you may want to make a decision about what's most important, how many pages you want to check, and how thoroughly you want to check them. If you have a site with a large number of pages, then you can maybe just focus on the pages that are most important. So as an example, I helped out a friend migrate over his site, and he actually had many pages that we didn't intend to have indexed by Google. And he already had them backed up. They were mostly his email newsletters that he had converted into blog posts. Step 4 is migrate. And this is the part where you actually switch over from making the old site live to the new site live. Now, at this point, you should have gone through the site pretty thoroughly, so you know what to expect, and you should feel pretty confident about making a switch. So you're going to make the switch, you're going to point the old domain over to the new site, and then you're going to test everything out. Test out forms, test out opt-ins, make sure that the visitors show live on the site and analytics, and just check over as many things as possible. You should have mapped some of those things out in the checklist back in step 1. So once you've done the migration, check on desktop, check on mobile, and make sure everything's working properly. So I recommend watching it for at least a week before you make any changes. Let it settle in, make sure that there's nothing that's broken. You may have some things that pop up here and there, and just check in daily, see if there's some things that you might have missed, and that should give you confidence that everything went well. If you look at the page traffic and the rankings, everything should remain fairly consistent. Part 5, evolve. So for this next step, this is where you can actually improve the site. So after the site has settled in and you're confident that everything is exactly the way that it should be, then you can start making the improvements. You can start improving the pages, adding content, start making the pages faster. The nice thing about Astro is that it's really easy to make the pages go a lot faster than on WordPress. For example, you can change the image format to WebP, and the AI can help out with a lot of that. So you're going to notice in many cases that the site loads much faster than it did before, and that's really nice. You can do things like add menus, change menus around, change around the site, but you do want to be very strategic about this. So make small changes and keep improving it as you go. And the nice thing about this is once the conversion is complete, you can still go back and check. I do recommend keeping the old version of your WordPress site, keep that available to you for a while. But as you start improving things with AI, you'll notice how much easier it is to add content, to edit things, to rearrange pages, to add new pages, things like that. So I think that was one of the big benefits for me. So let's talk about results. So far, I've migrated over 4 sites, 3 of my own and 1 of my friends, and the results have been great so far. All of them, it has shown an improvement in impressions and traffic and just overall visibility. And they're just much easier to update and more enjoyable to work on in general. I have talked to a few other people that have made migrations, made changes, and they did say that their traffic has remained steady or improved, but the data set is really small, so it's hard to say how often this happens for people. So who is this for? Now, I'm not sure I would recommend this for everyone. In my opinion, I would do these on sites where they're not your main site, but maybe they're project sites, and you might not be working on them much anymore, or you might have some headaches or some problems with them, and you're willing to take a risk on them because the upside is greater than the downside. So especially if you're new to this, I recommend starting with something like that, or you can just build a site from scratch too with AI if you'd like to do it that way. But get some familiarity first before you actually go and change out one of your big sites. That was the case with the sites that I've migrated over, and so far I've been really happy with them. I think as you get the experience and as you start migrating some of these over, you're going to get more of a feel for what you need to be looking out for. Now, of course, there's always risk involved with this stuff. So if you do make the change, there's no guarantee that anytime you make some kind of change, who knows how you're going to be showing up in the search engines and to AI overviews and things like that. So if you are considering changing over to Astro, I would say if you have a site that you're okay experimenting on, then it's a good experience to give it a try. And the main thing is make sure that you preserve what already works and then build on top of that.